Hello and happy Friday. Today is the last day of Harry Potter reading before you guys are on spring break next week. So there will not be any Harry Potter readings Monday through Friday next week, but we will pick right back up where we left off when we come back from our break time, okay? I promise I won't read ahead either. So we left off where Harry left Filch's office, and he was just intercepted by nearly headless Nick. So, he escaped from Filch's office without punishment, and probably some kind of school record. Harry, did it work? Nearly headless Nick came gliding out of a classroom. Behind him, Harry could see the wreckage of a large black and gold cabinet which appeared to have been dropped from a great height. I persuaded Peeves to crash it right over Filch's office, said Nick eagerly. Thought it might distract him. Was that you? Said Harry gratefully. Yeah, it worked, and this is Harry. Yeah, it worked, and I didn't even get detention. Thanks, Nick. They set off up the corridor together. Nearly headless Nick. I'm sorry, I keep getting lost today. How many times? Nearly headless Nick, Harry noticed, was still holding Sir Patrick's rejection letter. I wish there was something I could do for you about the headless hunt, Harry said. Nearly headless Nick stopped in his tracks, and Harry walked right through him. He wished he hadn't. It was like stepping through an icy shower. But there is something you could do for me, said Nick excitedly. Harry, would I be asking too much? But no, you wouldn't want... What is it? Said Harry. Well, this Halloween will be my 500th death day, said nearly headless Nick, drawing himself up and looking dignified. Oh, said Harry, not sure whether he should look sorry or happy about this. Right. Ooh, some cool pictures here. They're a little small. They look like ghost birds. I'm holding a party down in one of the roomier dungeons. Friends will be coming from all over the country. It would be such an honor if you would attend. Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger would be most welcome too, of course, but I dare say you'd rather go to the school feast? He watched Harry on tenterhooks. No, said Harry quickly, I'll come. My dear boy, Harry Potter, at my death day party. And, he hesitated, looking excited, do you think you could possibly mention to Sir Patrick how very frightening and impressive you find me? Of course, said Harry. Nearly headless Nick beamed at him. A death day party, said Hermione keenly when Harry had changed at last and joined her and Ron in the common room. I bet there aren't many living people who can say they've been to one of those. It'll be fascinating. Why would anybody want to celebrate the day they died? Said Ron, who was halfway through his potions homework and grumpy. Sounds dead depressing to me. Rain was still lashing on the windows, which were now inky black, but inside all looked bright and cheerful. The firelight glowed on the countless squashy armchairs where people sat reading, talking, or doing homework, or, in the case of Fred and George Weasley, trying to find out what would happen if you fed filibuster firework to a salamander. Fred had rescued the brilliant orange fire-dwelling lizard from a care of magical creatures class, and it was now smoldering gently on a table, surrounded by a knot of curious people. Harry was on the point of telling Ron and Hermione about Filch and the Quickspell course when the salamander suddenly whizzed into the air, emitting loud sparks and bangs as it whirled wildly around the room. The sight of Percy bellowing himself hoarse at Fred and George, the spectacular display of tangerine stars showering from the salamander's mouth, and its escape into the fire with accompanying explosions drove both Filch and the Quickspell envelope from Harry's mind. By the time Halloween arrived, Harry was regretting the rash promise to go to the Death Day party. The rest of the school were happily anticipating their Halloween feast. The great hall had been decorated with the usual live bats. Hagrid's vast pumpkins had been carved into lanterns large enough for 3 men and women to sit inside, and there were rumors that Dumbledore had booked a troupe of dancing skeletons for the entertainment. "A promise is a promise," Hermione reminded Harry bossily. "You said you would go to the Death Day party." So, at 7 o'clock, Harry, Ron, and Hermione walked straight past the doorway to the packed Great Hall, which was glittering invitingly with gold plates and candles, and directed their steps instead towards the dungeons. The passageway leading to Nearly Headless Nick's party had been lined with candles, too, though the effect was far from cheerful. These were long, thin, jet-black tapers, all burning bright blue, casting a dim, ghostly light even over their own living faces. The temperature dropped with every step they took. As Harry shivered and drew his robes tightly around him, he heard what sounded like 1,000 fingernails scraping on an enormous blackboard. "Is that supposed to be music?" Ron whispered. They turned the corner and saw Nearly Headless Nick standing at a doorway, hung with black velvet drapes. "My dear friends," he said mournfully, "welcome, welcome. So pleased you could come." He swept off his plumed hat and bowed them inside. It was an incredible sight. The dungeon was full of hundreds of pearly white translucent people, mostly drifting around on a crowded dance floor, waltzing to the dreadful, quavering sound of thirsty musical saws, played by an orchestra on a black draped platform. A chandelier overhead blazed the midnight blue with 1,000 more black candles. Their breath rose in a mist before them. It was like stepping into a freezer. "Shall we have a look around?" Harry suggested, wanting to warm up his feet. "Careful not to walk through anyone," said Ron nervously, and they set off around the edge of the dance floor. They passed a group of gloomy nuns, a ragged man wearing chains, and the fat friar, a cheerful Hufflepuff ghost, who was talking to a knight with an arrow sticking out of his forehead. Harry wasn't surprised to see that the Bloody Baron, a gaunt, staring Slytherin ghost covered in silver bloodstains, had been given a wide berth by the other ghosts. "Oh no," said Hermione, stopping abruptly. Turn back! I don't want to talk to Moaning Myrtle." "Who?" said Harry, as they backtracked quickly. "She haunts the girls' bathroom on the first floor," said Hermione. "She haunts a toilet?" "Yes, it's been out of order all year because she keeps having tantrums and flooding the place. I never went in there anyway if I could avoid it. It's awful trying to go to the loo with her, wailing at you." Awesome artwork here. I want to make sure you guys can see it. Let's see if I can angle you this way. But I gotta be able to read. "Look, food," said Ron. On the other side of the dungeon was a long table, also covered in black velvet. They approached it eagerly, but the next moment had stopped in their tracks, horrified. The smell was quite disgusting. Large, rotten fish were laid on handsome silver platters. Cakes burned charcoal black were heaped onto salvers, and there was a great maggoty haggis, a slab of cheese covered in furry green mold, and, in pride of place, an enormous gray cake in the shape of a tombstone, with tar-like icing foaming at the words. Sir Nicholas de Mimsey Porpington died 31st of October, 1492. Harry watched amazed as a porthy ghost approached the table, crouched down, and walked through it, his mouth held wide so that it passed through one of the stinking salmon. "Can you taste it if you walk through it?" Harry asked him. "Almost," said the ghost sadly, and then drifted away. "I expect they've left it to rot to give it stronger flavor," said Hermione knowledgeably, pinching her nose and leaning closer to look at the putrid haggis. "Can we move? I feel sick," said Ron. They had barely turned around, however, when a little man swooped suddenly from under the table and came to a halt mid-air before them. "Hello, Peeves," said Harry cautiously. Unlike the ghosts around them, Peeves, the poltergeist, was the very reverse of pale and transparent. He is wearing a bright orange party hat and a revolving bow tie and a broad grin in his wide, wicked face. "Nibbles?" he said sweetly, offering them a bowl of peanuts that were covered in fungus. "No thanks," said Hermione. "Heard you talking about poor Myrtle," said Peeves, his eyes dancing. "Rude you was about poor Myrtle." He took a deep breath and bellowed, "Oh, Myrtle!" "Oh, no, Peeves, don't tell her what I said. She'll be really upset," said Hermione, as she whispered frantically. "I didn't mean it. I don't mind her. Oh, hello, Myrtle." The squat ghost of a girl had glided over. She had the glummiest face that Harry had ever seen, half hidden behind lank hair and thick, pearly spectacles. "What?" she said sulkily. "How are you, Myrtle?" said Hermione in a falsely bright voice. "It's nice to see you out of the toilet." Myrtle sniffled. "Miss Granger was just talking about you," said Peeves slyly in Myrtle's ear. "Just saying how nice you look tonight," said Hermione, glaring at Peeves. Myrtle eyed Hermione suspiciously. "You're making fun of me," she said. Silver tears were welling rapidly in her small, see-through eyes. Oh, we're at 12 minutes. I'll go just a moment more, because this picture's awesome. Like, beyond awesome. "No, honestly, didn't I just say how nice Myrtle's looking?" said Hermione, nudging Harry and Ron painfully in the ribs. "Oh, yeah. Yep, she did." "Don't lie to me," Myrtle gasped, tears now flooding down her face, while Peeves chuckled happily over her shoulder. "Do you think I don't know what people call me behind my back? Ugly Myrtle, miserable, moaning, moping Myrtle." You've missed out on Spotty," Peeves hissed in her ear. Moaning Myrtle burst into anguished sobs and fled from the dungeon. Peeves shot after her, pelting her with moldy peanuts, yelling, "Spotty! Spotty!" "Oh, dear," said Hermione sadly. Nearly Headless Nick now had drifted towards them through the crowd. "Enjoying yourselves?" "Oh, yes," they lied. "Not a bad turnout," said Nearly Headless Nick proudly. "The Wailing Widow came all the way from Kent. It's nearly time for my speech. I'd better go and warn the orchestra." The orchestra, however, stopped playing at that very moment. They, and everyone else in the dungeon, fell silent, looking around in excitement, as a hunting horn sounded. "Oh, here we go," said Nearly Headless Nick bitterly. Through the dungeon wall burst a dozen ghost horses, each ridden by a headless horseman. The assembly clapped wildly. Harry started to clap too, but stopped quickly at the sight of Nick's face. The horse galloped into the middle of the dance floor and halted, rearing and plunging, a large ghost at the front, whose bearded head was under his arm, blowing a horn, and it leapt down, lifted his head up high into the air so that he could see over the crowd. Everyone laughed, and strode over to nearly headless Nick, squashing his head back onto his neck. "Nick!" he roared. "How are you? Head still hanging on there?" He gave a hearty guffaw and clapped nearly headless Nick on the shoulder. "Welcome, Patrick," said Nick stiffly. "Livens!" said Sir Patrick, spotting Harry, Ron, and Hermione and giving a huge fake jump of astonishment so that his head fell off again. The crowd howled with laughter. "Very amusing," said nearly headless Nick. "Don't mind Nick," shouted Sir Patrick's head from the floor. "Still upset we won't let him join the headless hunt, but I mean to say, look at the fellow." "I think," said Harry hurriedly, I think, said Harry hurriedly, at a meaningful look from Nick, that Nick's very frightening and, ha! Yelled Sir Patrick's head. "I bet he asked you to say that." Okay, now we really do have to stop. This video is not going to upload. Okay, that is it for now, team, and I will see you after spring break. Know that I will miss you this week, and I will be available by email, and if your parents or families need to reach out for anything, know that I'm here, I'm available, I'll be around, whether it's a phone call or a Zoom chat that's urgent, I can be there, okay? So you're not alone in this, and I hope that you get to do something a little out of routine, or maybe even just enjoy not having assigned homework, okay? I'll put some games up on Envision just in case anyone wants to keep with that routine. All right, bye for now.